It's like, oh, I'm this badass adventurer, barbarian fighter, and this little net's on me. I guess I'll lay down and die. No, just take it off.
Well, yeah, you tried that, and then Whips Nettington from 10 feet away starts whipping the crap out of you.
Welcome to Monsters in Multiclass, your weekly Dungeons & Dragons fix between your sessions. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Milton.
And we'll be hanging out with you for an hour to discuss everything and anything D&D related. This is episode number 1. We'll be diving into the Rogue Monk multi-class and see what sort of characters we could come up with, synergy we can make. And then later on, we'll also be looking at the Grey Render monster from Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes, and of course go off on whatever tangents these discussions bring us. So grab a seat and listen up.
All right, first tangent I want to go on, it is Tomophos, not Tomophos.
Oh shit, did I say Tomophos?
You did.
Tomophos. I always do that. It rolls off the tongue so much better.
Yeah, but
I don't want to redo that intro though. So we're just gonna
roll with it.
Yes.
That's okay.
Tome. It's good to be finally doing this for real.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, and more importantly, we're always talking about D&D almost constantly, which is its own problem, but hopefully this will be a good fix for us as well as any other person who just has this same problem.
That problem, of course, being you want to play more Dungeons and Dragons, but never can.
And you spend most of your workday talking about Dungeons & Dragons in a private Dungeons & Dragons chat with your friends.
I don't know about to that extreme.
Oh, well, I guess that's just me.
Yeah, it seems the game of Dungeons and Dragons is inherently hard to play because you need 4, 5, 6 people all dedicated for 3-4 hours to get a good session in. That scheduling just never works out, and there's never enough time to play. And I personally went out and looked for discussion-based podcasts and never really found much. Everything that's out there seems to be people recording themselves playing.
Just does not scratch that itch.
Yeah, which is fine. Obviously, there's a market for it. People clearly enjoy it because there's so many of them, but it's not for me. I know I was really disappointed when there was nothing like this. So I feel like for a few years now, we've been kind of jokingly bringing up every time we get into a long discussion, we should do a podcast. And we go, yeah, that'd be great, and then never do anything.
So here we are.
Never doing it.
Do you want to get started?
Yeah, let's just jump into it. So, I guess we should probably explain our two ideas here. So even this is somewhat of an open discussion, but week after week after week, and we're trying to do weekly podcasts an hour long. It's hard if it's just completely open to keep those consistent. We're going to have some 15 minutes and some an hour and a half and some not so good and others better. So we have 2 segment ideas that we feel facilitate a lot of conversation. We allow ourselves to get off topic and go on tangents to really open up that conversation to the rest of D&D. These 2 segment ideas are multi-class dissection, where night before, couple days before, we roll 2d12s. If you're not aware, there's exactly 12 official classes for D&D that have been released. So we randomize a multi-class, we read up on the class, and we come in here and discuss it. The goal is to get through all of them, so there's going to be some ridiculous conversations. I think we're not doing it today, but one we have coming up is a Ranger Wizard, so that'll be a fun little challenge. And then the second segment is Monster of the Week, where one of us brings a monster to the table, a creature or a set of monsters from Monster Manual Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. There we go. Got it. And have a discussion on it. How can the DM use this? How should the players fight it? Why is it flavorful? Why do we like it? Different ways to use it. So we feel these kind of 2 segments facilitate a lot of good conversation. Anything else you guys want to add, or should we just jump right into the multi-class?
Seems like you covered it.
All right. Oh, one more thing, a disclaimer on the multi-class. This is not a discussion of optimization. Some of these combinations, it would just be a joke to try and claim anything about them as optimized. It's about validity, not being a detriment to the party, and fun and cool character ideas. I think we feel optimization discussions are better in a text format where there's all the number crunching instead of us just talking and trying to keep it in our heads. And also, we're not really optimizers. We like the cool, fun character ideas. Why are you glaring at me, Will?
Kevin, you've rolled a Polearm Master like 4 times already. I'm not a character optimizer.
But when was a strength-based ranger polearm master? I mean, that's far from optimized.
True.
And it's don't get me right. You could play an optimized character and still do cool role-playing stuff, which we have done. But we always try and match it to the table. I'd say
I'd agree with that.
we never try and abuse.
No, I think that's the fine line is abuse, where you just have a lot of times where people will sit and just recognize that it's 2 points of damage more per round, so they'll go with that over anything else. And I think that's the main thing we will stray away from. If it's the difference between choosing something that is actually worthwhile and something that is just kind of bonkers, then we'll always go with the flavorful one.
Yeah. Flavor uber alles.
Flavor over what?
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Everything.
Everything. Flavor over everything.
Again, just depends. At some tables, I guess people like to they'll go with the optimization, and everybody comes with this crazy optimized character, and the DM throws ridiculous encounters, and that's fun for them, sure. But the worst case is like you have half the table wanting flavorful RP heavy characters with flaws and different things. Their mechanics match their character concept, and they're not optimized. And then the other half is fully optimized, and it's how the hell do you balance that as a DM?
You don't, Kevin.
Exactly. Someone's going to be unhappy.
All right, so let's get into the actual multi-class part. So we're going to do Rogue and Monk today. So I say we start off just by giving some general first impressions. Kevin, what do you think about that?
I think there's definitely a lot here. You have 2 dexterity-based classes, so that right away gels pretty well. And there's definitely a lot of options. It's not a bad multi-class by any means. It's no ranger wizard or anything like that. We keep teasing that, so that's gonna have to be a good podcast.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think there's a whole lot of options, and I mean we'll get into them all. But what are your guys' thoughts, Jared? I know you were pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, I like it in general. Just as a concept, as we said, like the builds kind of line up. Dex is going to be important for both of them. That's really good. The main thing that worries me is going to be that sneak attack from the rogue, because that's going to require a melee weapon of sorts, and it just might not work entirely with the monk. I think looking into it more, we'll figure something out so that you at least get some of those rogue class features in there, if not every single time. Will?
I don't think there's a combination in the game that provides you more bonus action options. It's almost too many bonus actions. Every turn, you will probably have to choose between 5 different courses of using your bonus action, which it's kind of a negative. You can't be like, oh, look at all the things I have, but you only get one. You only ever get one.
Yeah, I have that in my notes too. You're always fighting for it. The rogues get cunning action. I think it's just that second level.
Yep, second.
Yeah, man, that paper really picks up. Sorry, people, you're going to have to deal with it, I guess. Paper flipping. And I know anytime I have played a rogue or played with a rogue, I can't think of any turn in combat where the rogue did not use a bonus action for cunning action, or they had a feat that gave them an extra attack as a bonus action. And then as Will pointed out, you have all the monk stuff. It's...
Right. No, definitely. One of the things against that, though, is that with the monk multi-class, you're going to be a lot more in the fight compared to a rogue that usually wants to make a ranged attack. So they're going to use that bonus action to disengage almost every time. I think with it being a monk and having that, I guess we'll see what type of armor, but they'll be a little bit more bulky and might want to stay in the fight a bit more.
Yeah, between the two, they definitely get some decent... Well, they both get evasion at level 7, so that's a little bit of a waste, but then rogue gets the uncanny dodge.
Right, those go...
Use a reaction to have damage. Doesn't the monk get another defense, or am I not remembering right?
What do you mean by defense?
Like another defensive...
They can redirect ranged attacks.
Oh.
Yeah, that's...
Which kind of sucks.
Kind of minor. It doesn't come up that much. I guess it's just evasion. Okay. So between the two of them.
Yeah, that was what I came across. Is it always sucks taking that, I guess, wasted level. Because if you take a 7th level on either of them, then you're just going to get it from the other one. So it might feel like you're capped out at 6 on one of the classes in an optimization route.
Yeah. Also, even non-optimization, just a real campaign. I think it's pretty rare to get more than 6 in 2 multi-classing, because if they're both level 7, that's a level 14 character. A lot of campaigns don't go that high, or the end there.
Right. And I think at that point, you just make your choice of one way or the other from then. You're never going to get the best of everything. That's the point of a multi-class.
Actually, when I didn't realize this till you said it at the beginning here with your thoughts about dealing with, it may not always be able to get the sneak attack. I was mistaken. I had this idea where at one level in Monk gets you the martial arts ability, where they can make an unarmed attack as a bonus action when they attack, thinking that's great with the rogue, because it right away gets a rogue a second attack, which they never get, and another chance to hit that sneak attack. But, man, I got this wrong, so I need to scratch out a big section of my notes, unfortunately. The sneak attack needs a finesse weapon.
Yep.
Unarmed strikes, my understanding, are not finesse.
They are not finesse.
They have the properties of finesse, but they are not specifically finesse.
Yes.
Which brings me to...
Time to tweet Mike Merles. Find out for real.
I think my favorite class for the rogues to take in this multi-class is Swashbuckler, which is in Xanther's Guide to Everything. It allows you to choose any... I'm sorry, not Swashbuckler. I'm going to take a step back. Kensai Monk. That's the one I meant. Because you can choose any weapon as your monk weapon. So that allows you to take a finesse weapon as your monk weapon. So you at the very least get one attack that will be a sneak attack every time. And you could take a longsword, to get you a D10 for that first attack at the very least. As well as when you do your extra attack at level 5.
I know you could take longsword as a monk weapon, but that wouldn't trigger sneak attack, would it?
That's not a finesse weapon.
That is not a finesse weapon.
So a rapier is probably what you're looking
Rapier
for.
is what you're looking
D8,
for.
yeah.
This is real. That's
All
real
over the place.
fresh take on what to use as a rogue. A rapier. Wow. I don't think anybody's ever thought about that.
Yep. No, sorry, you're right. Yeah, rapier is definitely what I have written down.
A rapier of a monk with a rapier is cool, but
Yes.
that's just Kenzai by default.
Yep, that works. So, I mean, really, the Kensai allows you even more random stuff you can do, and probably, again, that too many bonus actions thing. But it at least lets you use whatever you want weapon-wise, and it is your monk weapon. It's always cool.
So let's talk character concept. So we jumped right into mechanics a bit.
Yep.
We'll probably circle back to that. But role-playing reasons of having a monk rogue. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's always just it's kind of hard to combine a roguish type and a monk type because they're immediately contradict each other in a lot of ways. There's the shadow monk that does lend itself well to the rogue multi-class, because that's at least like a ninja monk combined with a rogue. Those fit well together. So that's just any type of, you were in a monastery, you were a shadow monk, you were trained in the way of the shadow and whatever that entails. And then you go out into the adventuring world, and you don't have to really focus on the thieving aspects of being a rogue. That is its own subclass. You could go more towards the assassin route, which feels flavorful.
Like the shadow monk assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll counter-signal that idea that a monk and a rogue don't complement each other. Think about how many times you've seen the delinquent who knows karate stereotype in movies. It is everywhere. That's like, why is this delinquent the top of the pack? Because he knows martial arts. And that's the redemption arc right there. He gets to go to the tournament. He gets to find, justice. But he started out as a scrappy, kung fu-enabled little street urchin. Perfect.
So the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Basically. You want to play the Karate Kid.
But the bad guy,
people.
Who murders people.
the bad guy from
the bad
Karate
guy from
Kid.
the Karate Kid, who was obviously the better character.
Oof. And it also brings up an interesting topic with the monk class. Out of all the classes, when it comes to character concepts, I think the monk is the most restrictive, because it really strongly puts this flavor on it, where this is kind of this Far East theme, the monastic traditions and training in a monastery and inner self-control. And I feel like it really limits it. If you don't want to do that, you're having to completely reskin it, where other classes are more open about where they get their skills from. The monk seems kind of limited in that sense.
Right. I mean, you can always have a defector where they were trained in these monk ways and then went on to use them in less than scrupulous manners. In the player's handbook, it more or less says that's not going to happen, but who needs that for telling me how to create my characters? Yeah, I mean, it's restrictive, but it at least lets you go down so many different paths with the type of monk you are that it is still fairly open in that route. Say, you can always be the scrappy street urchin. But how would they get their monk powers? Are we just going to say, like, just scrap the monastery thing and they were trained by a Mr. Miyagi type?
Yeah, they were just trained by a former monk who no longer had a monastery. There's no reason a monastery has to be where you train.
Actually, pretty good point. I didn't think about that too much. All right, so the other aspect is a reformed rogue. That was one thing I was thinking where they were, if you did go with the Swashbuckler class, which has its own things I'll talk about in a minute here, you could just start off as they were a pirate, but then they realized, oh, my life was terrible that way. I'm going to reform myself and join a monastery, and something along those lines gives you the, I guess, takes away from the redemption arc and makes it so that already happened. But, that's creates an inner conflict throughout the campaign or whatever you're playing, where they kind of have to choose between the two. Do they want to return to their terrible ways or go with the more holy monk ways? I guess not holy, but inner Zen.
Mm-hmm. Or you have the opposite. They start as a monk, traditional in a monastery, and hate the life of it, and they leave, and they go try and make it out in the world on their own, and they're completely rebelling against this inner peace aspect of it and stuff like that.
Right, because I mean, it's stated that it's pretty frequent a baby will just be left on a monastery door, and they're like, hey, take care of our child. I could see that going poorly a couple of times, where they just don't want to be a monk.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a monk.
I kind of want to be a monk.
I mean, if it gets me special powers and I can channel ki and...
Yeah, I guess they don't really advertise that at normal monasteries. But in the D&D world, yeah, being a monk would be pretty cool.
Drunken monk. I'm basically already qualified for that most of the time.
It's like not even specified in the drunken monk subclass. What is that? Way of the Drunken Monk? Is that all it is?
Drunken monk.
Drunken
Master.
Drunken Master. That they specifically drink.
No, it's specifically not mentioned, and everyone's always like, well, they're not technically drunk. I reject that concept and believe that the best way to pretend to be drunk is to actually be drunk.
Well, it's the fact that they give them proficiency in brewer's kits. So it's like, oh, they're not actually drunk, but they are great at making beer, but at, level 7, beer doesn't affect them anymore. Unless they want it to.
Is that an actual class ability?
It's at, no, I'm sorry, purity of body, 10th level.
That's just
the core monk, right?
Yep. Yeah, it makes you immune to disease and poison. It's really depends on how you flavor that one, but I'd assume alcohol is poison.
But that would really suck if you couldn't turn that off. You're like, oh, I'm going to get out of control tonight. And you just 19 beers in and you're like, crap, I'm immune to that.
Well, it doesn't even say that you can turn it off. It's just that your mastery of ki makes you immune. So officially it says rules is written that you can't turn it off. But that might be a rules as intended one where if you...
I would like to think a proper drunken monk would... Drunken master. I can't remember the name.
It's okay.
Would train to turn that off.
Yeah.
Focus my ki. Let the intoxication flow.
Whip around the battlefield and smack people.
But yeah, looking at all the different options you have as a monk, some of them do seem a little contradictory. In the core monk class, you were right in pointing that out, is a little bit heavy-handed about origins. Right. So they don't really specify the difference, but I can't imagine a drunken master is going to train in the exact same way as Way of the Four Elements.
Right. You've
got a bunch of weird drunk hobo-looking pretending guys and a bunch of Avatar fanboys. They're gonna have different ways of training. Obviously, the drunken monks are going to brew their own beer, and the Avatar kids are going to have Naruto headbands and stuff like that.
As somebody whose first character was Way of the Four Elements, I really resent that. Also, since I really like Avatar. And Naruto.
Oh god. Do we have anime in our D&D worlds?
Yes, we do. Most of our characters, unbeknownst to Kevin, are based off of anime in some way, shape, or form.
My current one is.
His current one is most of the things I do based off anime.
Yeah, these two guys, Jared and Will, are super into anime. Not my cup of tea. So
Kevin, don't alienate our viewers.
Space sucks. What?
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Anime does suck, but it's also the only thing I have in my life.
Well, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, which I use anime to flavor.
Yes. That was podcast. I'm still stuck on that drunken master where just picturing a scenario where even ignoring multi-class, they train and they get all their abilities when they're drunk. I guess they use the strength and whatever, and they hit a point where they get so good, their body now rejects poison and they become worthless.
Yeah, I'm reflavoring that as tolerance. That's it. Their tolerance has been built up to alcohol. They spend every single waking moment drunk. They wake up, drink, go to sleep, have a drink before bed, and finally they just become tolerant. They just tolerate it. Why does it need to be a monk thing? It's not channeling ki. They're just alcoholics.
Who no longer get any of their...
Well, no,
abilities.
I mean, once you hit a certain level of alcoholism, your mannerisms just become imbued with drunkenness, drunken energy, if you will. So these cool, like, leap to your feet, redirect attack, all these cool drunken abilities, they're just innate once you've hit...
Tipsy sway.
Tipsy sway. Once you hit that certain level of inebriation, permanence, you're just never not drunk. That's the secret.
Never not be drunk.
Never not be drunk.
Speaking of
lesson
which,
for the kids.
was there anything that made Drunken Monk and Rogue go together?
No, it wasn't at all. But
No.
the flavor does kind of work.
I mean,
Really?
It's not a terrible combination. I'm pulling it up now. The Drunken Monk is actually, it's somewhat tanky, if I remember.
A little bit, but not until, what is it? I guess 6th level, which isn't extremely far off, but that's when you can spend a key point as a reaction to cause that attack to hit one creature of your choice other than the attacker that you can see within 5 feet of you. So you can redirect an attack. You can also stand up when you're prone for only 5 feet of movement. Nothing.
Right, so not tanky, you're right. But
No.
I mean, that stuff gels well. And then Drunken Technique, you get a 3rd level. When you Flurry of Blows, you could take the disengage action. So that actually really helps that.
Freeze up your bonus action.
Yeah, that we were talking about at the beginning. Because Flurry of Blows is a bonus action.
Right.
And
So you have
then
to
it's
use
like,
that.
oh no, now I can't use my Cunning action. Well, this allows you to do that again.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not like mixing well. It's just giving you back something you already had.
Yeah, if you just went straight rogue, you would just already have it. You're right.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, you still get the Flurry of Blows, which is super nice. But that's just pure attacks, as we've mentioned already. No sneak attack off of that.
Right.
So
well,
you're really...
I don't know. Is there a finesse weapon in the monk weapons category?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
No. The short sword, isn't?
Yeah, I think
That's
short
finesse.
sword might be finesse.
Short sword finesse?
I mean,
I
don't
don't
get
have
me
it in front of
wrong.
me.
That
No one
weapon
has
is
the player handbook out.
pretty
do they?
low.
No.
but
We're the worst.
That's okay.
You didn't memorize all this stuff?
You want to pause?
Yeah.
Yeah, pause.
Short sword is finesse. Okay, so you can use that.
Thank you, time skips.
Told you.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one.
But that being said, Flurry of Blows is
Unarmed.
specifically unarmed attacks.
Yes.
You make your attack, and then as a bonus action, you get to make 2 unarmed attacks.
You can do that with your offhand, though, right?
It says unarmed. I mean, I double check it.
You don't have to be entirely unarmed. As long as you have one hand free, that's usually fine. Even if you don't, you can still flavor it where it's kicks.
Yeah, kicks, headbutts. Yeah. That's even if you're dual wielding, I'd still allow it.
Right.
But that goes back to the unarmed attack does not trigger sneak attack.
Correct.
Because it's not finesse. So I guess you're still, and again, it's what I was wrong about at the beginning, still stuck with the one sneak attack option. Though a level 5 monk is extra attack. Duh. There we go.
2.
That's
So-
an easy one.
2 chances for sneak attack, which is good. Could even just make, if you go Kensai, you could make darts your monk weapon. And then you got ranged ones.
Yeah.
Just throwing shurikens left and right.
Always fun.
Always fun.
Yeah.
So that's what I really liked about the Kensai is it makes weapons that usually aren't viable at all extremely viable because now they just go up with your monk die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
Kensai and
Whip.
Shadow both lend themselves to ninja.
Can you do whip? Whip is not special.
You got the page open.
I do have it right here.
Sneddington.
No, it's just finesse. So yeah, you could totally.
Wait, whip's finesse?
Yeah.
You can even sneak attack off a whip?
Yeah.
Kensai, monk, rogue, dual wielding whips.
Finally.
There we go.
But you can't do it with nets because nets are special.
No.
So Whips Neddington, please go into Whips Neddington. and
Whips
your dream.
Neddington is a character built off of whips and nets.
Yep, that's it.
There have been no details provided for Whips Neddington other than his love of adventure and his insistence on using whips and nets. If he loses his whips and nets, he will fashion them out of tree bark rather than pick up a longsword. Because Whips Neddington understands that broken special weapons are what make D&D fun.
So
Nets are terrible, though.
I know, that's why they're broken. I'm not talking about broken in a good way.
Always at
I
disadvantage.
know, but
Yes.
Whips Neddington is devoted to a cause beyond just min-maxing, Kevin. He is a pure soul who believes in the potential of whips and nets.
do you think if we petition enough, we can get Wizards of the Coast to make a class that revolves around nets and just not having disadvantage?
First feature. Nets are no longer fundamentally broken. They serve a purpose and can be used at all.
Even if you get rid of the disadvantage, it's you do 2 damage to it and it breaks.
It has to be
And
slashing damage. That's
yeah,
really important.
Or like a DC 10 strength check to pull it off of you. It's like, oh, I'm this badass adventurer, barbarian fighter, and this little net's on me. I guess I'll lay down and die. No, just take it off.
Well, yeah, you tried that, and then Whips Neddington from 10 feet away starts whipping the crap out of you.
First off, it's 5 damage. It's got a AC of 10. And it has to be slashing. So it's really great against.
No one has that.
No one has slashing. It's might be piercing. They can't bite through it.
Yeah.
And then a DC 10 strength check.
But I mean, I guess it is your whole action, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's really, I guess, the benefit of it is just taking away their action, but your action is also taken away because all you did is throw a net on somebody. And they are just restrained.
Yeah.
So you can still attack out of a net. So anybody who is ranged doesn't matter. They just can't move, which, I mean, can be a problem, but not every time is it an issue.
I'm trying to get a visual image of that, like an elf with a longbow in a net, being able to pull back that entire longbow and fire it through the net.
Can you attack one restrained? We forget that every time, don't we?
Yeah, I just looked up restrained. It's
Okay.
really not much.
Yeah, no, I remember. It's one of the garbage ones.
It's a little bit better than grappled.
All right.
Grapple
So,
applies restraint, doesn't it?
yeah, kind of. But it's slightly different.
It was slightly different.
But once again, we're talking about just very, very broken features in D&D 5e.
It's grapple, but you can move after. And then that person is
then hit
just
him with a whip.
totally... Yeah, they're just at the mercy of your whip.
It's not a good character.
It's not.
His name's kind of funny.
And I still do like the character with just dual wielding whips. Right? It's not two-handed or anything, right?
No,
Yeah,
You might actually have to take a feat if it's not light. Is it light?
it is not light.
Okay, so you need the feet
Yeah.
to dual wield them.
The dual wielder feat. Is that just what it is, right? Dual wielder.
It's-
You
something
can also
like
take
that.
them out simultaneously. So you can have nothing on you, and then you have 2 whips.
Out of
for free.
nowhere.
Yeah, the raw non-feet dual wielder, it's if you want to dual wield weapons, they both have to be light. And then a feat gets rid of that. That's what we're referencing.
Yep.
So the rogue side of things, we've kind of ignored them. I found and this is more just a general comment on rogues, the inquisitor, inquisitive. I think it's just called inquisitive, which is kind of a weird name. And the mastermind rogue subclasses I found interesting. And I've known of their existence. I even played an inquisitive rogue back when they were UA, Unearthed Arcana. And they're 2 subclasses that are not really focused on combat. They don't get much for combat. It's out of combat stuff. The Inquisitive Rogue is all about recognizing deceits and investigating things well. And they get one... They do get one cool ability. where you can make an insight check against a creature you're attacking against their, I think, deception. And if you pass that, if you beat them, you could get sneak attack on them for a minute without needing any other of the conditions.
Is that a like once per short or long rest,
Nope,
or is that just
you just have it?
That's pretty useful.
Yeah, it lasts for a minute. Yeah, because then the rest of the stuff is... Yeah, you have advantage on any perception or investigation checks if you move no more than half your speed on the same turn. It's all out of combat
Right.
stuff. And then the mastermind's the same way, but more with the manipulation of people. These are going to be like the characters that run Thieves Guild and stuff like that. So they can make cool, flavorful characters, but they could lack in combat. And so multi-classing it with a monk, where the monks have a lot of good stuff, especially early on, could bring them back into viability for combat. So you're not just having these out of combat
Yeah, that makes sense.
characters.
I'm also thinking now about a monastery that's actually a front for a thieves guild.
Ooh, I like that.
They're just like bringing in people and training them to be these crafty rogues and monks at the same time. Essentially, League of Shadows.
The League of Shadows.
Even if you go the mastermind or inquisitive rogue route and just dip a couple levels into monk, you get martial arts. So you get the bonus weapon attacks. You get some basic key with flurry of blows and things like that right away. Also, then the unarmored defense, I completely got out of order here in my monk thing. I cannot find that first page.
Unarmored defense, is that just their
That's their class.
Here
standard
it is.
armor thing?
Yeah. Level 1, you get unarmored defense. So AC is 10 plus your dex plus your wisdom. I don't know. Maybe that's not going to be better than just the standard.
If your stats are good, it definitely will.
Yeah.
Well, because then you also get unarmored movement.
Rogues only get light armor, so... Yeah, so you get, unarmored movements, the martial art thing. Yeah, all this is level 2. So that's like a good 2-level dip.
So yeah, the question though is if you ever do dip into the monk, you're now looking at a situation where wearing armor has its serious disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But when does it... I can't think of any situation when we've played D&D where we've had characters where they would be switching armor, or they had to put armor on for some reason. They just don't wear armor. They
You choose a life of no armor.
Yeah.
Right, I
It's
guess the
pretty
only issue then you're running into is your armor class isn't going to go up unless you increase your dex or your wisdom, which if you're focusing on rogue, you're going to increase your dex. That's just obvious. Wisdom, I don't think is very necessary as a rogue.
I would actually disagree just because of their incredibly high skill use abilities. And some of the most important skills in the game are wisdom based.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm not saying you're not going to get any benefit, just that you may be focusing in other areas. What's another stat that rogues might need, though? Dex and
I can't think of
something that
anything.
works for their skills?
Con is always good. And
Yeah, of course.
Then it depends. If you go in the inquisitive route, intelligence is a good one. No synergy to combat except for that one ability to get the sneak attack. And actually, I built a whole character around that. That was a fun one. When the campaign Will ran.
What was it?
His name was Orir.
I hated that name. It was one of those like mouthful of chalk kind of names.
Yeah, it was a human inquisitive rogue. This was when it was still an unearthed arcana. It didn't change that much.
Okay.
And I decided not really make him focused on combat. In combat, he kind of just stuck in the back and fired a crossbow bolt. Occasionally got a good hit.
Was this the dude who was losing his mind?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, he was like a Sherlock Holmes that had PTSD and was going insane and hallucinated things.
That was a good character.
It was
It
fun.
was.
Except for his name.
Terrible name.
His intelligence and wisdom were actually higher than his dex. And I took like the keen mind feats, and there was like, perceptive feats, something like that. So all those got crazy high.
Right.
And it was a really fun character to play. In combat, he was okay. He hung in the back, he did a little damage occasionally, would do some decent stuff, but...
Well, that's kind of the nice thing about rogue is there's just so many times you're going to have sneak attack that even if your weapon itself doesn't do too much damage or your attack bonus doesn't do too much damage, you're still getting 1, 2, 3d6 to add on to that, and it just always makes the damage portion pretty solid and consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the trick with Rogue, though, is always finding a way to get another attack. Because that's always really beneficial. And again, though, Monk doesn't really... Yeah, level 5 of Monk. I don't know why I keep forgetting that is such a common base thing in 5e. At level 5, you get 2 attacks.
Yeah.
For a Monk and a lot of other classes.
Basically, every martial class. Besides
Rogue.
And Rangers don't in the revised, but that's a different conversation.
They don't in
Nope,
the revised?
they don't get it in the revised.
Oh, it's a subclass feature.
Yep.
Right.
So they made kind of diverge. That's, again, its own conversation that I'm sure we'll get into when we have a Ranger multi-class to go over.
Like the Ranger Wizard. We've now teased 4 times. I don't know why we keep teasing it. It's not very good.
I actually... Okay, no. Not talking about that. Not allowed.
I struggled with it.
Kevin.
But, okay.
Kevin.
Moving on.
You need to move on.
We're going to spoil our future episodes.
Yeah. Just keep him just teased enough.
Yeah.
Aren't you so curious? What did Kevin think? What was he going to say? You'll never know unless
Until
you
next
listen
time.
to our 2nd or 3rd episode.
Or 4th.
Could be 4th.
Yeah. Oops. Did we just reveal that? We pulled back the curtain and revealed we do these in bulk.
No, you
Oops.
just did.
We can cut that.
Cut it, Kev.
Why does it matter?
Because they'll know.
It's kind of an assumed thing. No one's thinking, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones this week. And wow, can you believe they did all of this in 1 week?
What
are
about
you
South
talking
Park?
Kevin?
I don't know about South Park. Actually, isn't that a thing with South Park?
Yeah, they do them.
Because they're current events.
Yeah, they like switch back and forth, but yeah,
Yeah.
when they do current event ones, they do it that week. That's the only way they can keep it current events.
Yeah. But we're not doing that. We're not doing news. We're not doing current events. It doesn't matter.
We should have a segment,
if we-
D&D news. This week on D&D.
It's only 1 week closer to another book coming out.
No new information.
No, we got the Spore Druid.
We did get
Oh.
the Spore Druid.
Some shifty guy took a picture of his book before it came out.
I didn't read that yet.
It's good. It's almost identical to the UA.
Okay. I remember it being kind of cool.
You're a creepy mushroom lord. It's... Who doesn't want that?
I like it because it changes up the druid a lot. I feel like a lot of times druids are all kind of samey. This is like a very, very big divergence of class, which I always appreciate those.
For sure. On the note of UAs, we should probably briefly discuss why we're not bringing up any. We're all, as a group, pretty strongly against them. We use UAs Unearth Arcanas. Not so much as Xanathars came out, because I gave you the updated version of most of them. So we have nothing against using those, but we're all pretty much against multi-classing with an Unearthed Arcana, because it creates a lot of broken situations, not tested for it. It just seems like something really messy we want to avoid. So in all of our discussions, we're just trying to stick to official material, except for possibly the Ranger, which we'll get to in our Ranger Wizard.
Jeez.
Will we actually get to that?
Yeah.
We already talked about how we'll discuss it on air, because we have disagreements on if we use the revised Ranger UA.
I feel like everyone has disagreements. Even Wizards of the Coast has disagreements about that.
Yeah. You need to get a different chair, dude.
I know, dude, but I can't really do
I'm so
anything.
sorry to all of our listeners. It's just all that creaking. It is coming through so clearly. I should have just said something right away and swapped it, but now we're 40 minutes in, and you've just been creak, 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 creak.
I can't sit that still.
Yeah, I know. We're going to switch your chair after this one.
All right, bud.
Dungeons and Dragons.
So I mentioned a couple of times the Swashbuckler rogue. I don't know any other use for Swashbuckler besides I was a pirate or I am a pirate.
That's what swashbuckler means.
Yeah.
Kinda.
No, that's like the definition.
It's supposed to be
pirate. So
it's supposed to be Art of the Blade and Charm. That's what you're combining. So really you can kind of just disassociate Swashbuckler and just focus on that and just be a very charismatic rogue,
right,
which is fine. It does kind of contradict monks, at least the stat build, just because you'll need to dip into charisma as well for your level 3 ability, which is Rakish Audacity, which just, what is it? You can, it just adds to your initiative rolls. with your charisma modifier, which isn't a huge deal. But you can at least get sneak attack if you're within 5 feet of something and there's no other creatures within 5 feet, which is pretty useful if you're going to be a more melee-based monk as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make sure you're...
Really.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, you can... Kensai monk. Again, those shurikens.
Yeah.
But that way you're just always getting sneak attack, more or less. So that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Really, after that, it falls off because your next ability is at level 9, and that's very charisma-based, and probably don't want to go to level 9 in Rogue.
What is it?
It's Panache. Probably
Panache.
Panache.
Well, this isn't a...
Panache.
Panache. The most cultured D&D podcast on the internet.
At level 9, your charm becomes extraordinarily beguiling. As an action, you can make a charisma, persuasion, check contested by a creature's wisdom, insight check. The creature must be able to hear you, and the two of you must share a language. If you succeed on the check and the creature's hostile to you, it has a disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you and can't make opportunity attack against targets other than you. So it's kind of like compelling duel, where they just have to fight you, otherwise they're going to have some issues. It lets your teammates get away. I don't think it's that great of an ability overall.
Yeah. So you said the only thing you can think of how to play a Swashbuckler.
Swashbuckler?
We're not good at talking. I don't know why we do a podcast. It's as a pirate. I don't think any skill has anything to do with boats or the ocean or pirates. There's nothing nautical about them, right? You're just hung up on the name. And if you go back to the original definition of it, a buckler is a small shield, and it's someone who fights with a small shield. That's all it is.
What's swash mean then, Kevin?
Some sort of fighting.
It's an onomatopoeia regarding boats. Swash is the sound of a wave as you buckle on top.
I don't think
on top of the great blue sea.
I said it's what sticks in my mind.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious that, you can do other things with it. It just immediately makes you think of a pirate. I mean, it's supposed to be dual wielding and just being a pirate. That's just the theme. I'm not going to think of it any other way.
You're basically a duelist swordsman.
Yeah.
You can also be Zorro.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, taking away any jokes, you can play it however you want. That's just immediately when I read it, when it first came up, everything just makes you think, oh, this would be great for a pirate character. But that doesn't mean it's bad for other things.
I was trying to think of pop culture references of who could be swashbucklers, and anything I'm coming up with are pirates. Like, oh, Wesley from The Princess Bride. No, he was a pirate. Han Solo, he was kind of a pirate.
Space pirate.
Even Zorro was a land pirate.
Yeah.
Also, in defense of the boat, speaking of boats, it's a big old airboat.
The plane.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd like to bring you live sound effects. Feels it adds some real depth and intimacy to this podcast.
They know we're in the basement. But the Swashbuckler was first released in the nautical-themed UA.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I mean, there's nothing official in there, but they really were strongly hinting, hey, yeah, you're a pirate. Do what you want, because a pirate is free. But, yeah, you are a pirate.
Was that just the Lazy Town song?
Yeah. We're not going to sing that. It's copyrighted.
Probably is, actually.
Rest in peace, Robbie Rotten.
Rest in peace. So I really do gotta say, it just seems like you can't go wrong with a lot of these combinations. We haven't really gotten too much into specific subclasses, at least for the monk, because anyone you take is just gonna work out pretty well with a rogue. Your biggest hurdle, to me, seems like the flavor. And we came up with some ideas. There's millions more, I'm sure. But as long as you can justify it, I think you've got yourself a good character any way you cut it.
Yeah, especially if you just completely reskin some of the monk and just divorce it 100% behind any theme or fluff or flavor that they put in the player's handbook. Then it's just a disciplined martial fighter. He could just be a soldier who just excels in that way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just completely re-theming something.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, everybody should use the rules as a guide, not as a help me out here.
I want to say the rule. Use the flavor text.
Yeah.
as a
Okay.
guide.
Use the flavor text as a guide,
I'm pretty
not
big on sticking to the rules.
Yes, you are. And that's okay. I like the rules as well. Don't change the rules. Unless it's a really bad rule.
Like what?
Like grapple.
Yeah.
Fix grapple 2018.
Don't grapple. How about that?
It has its uses.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
If you're a snake, if you're literally, your player character is a giant constrictor snake and you're limited on anything else you can do, yeah, go for it. Grapple.
So, like a druid?
So basically a druid. Nope, not a druid. Because you can do something else. Like turn into a crocodile and bite people. And also grapple them.
There's a lot of grapple builds, though, out there. You could, if you construct a character around it, they could be decent. And there's the combination of grapple and then trip, or trip and then grapple. So then they're stuck prone. And every attack on them, every melee attack on them gets advantage.
And how many turns does that take to execute?
1, I think.
If you have multi-attack?
Yeah, if you have multi-attack, I think you could... I know it lays that out in the player handbook. I'm pretty sure for 1 attack of your extra attack, not multi-attack, that's a monster thing. Extra attack, you could grapple, and then the second one you do the special trip attack.
Okay. What's the rules on tripping?
I think it's called shoving.
Shoving.
Yeah, there's shove, which you could do 2 things. You can knock them back, I think it's just 5 feet, or knock them prone.
Right. And is that just another contested strength?
Yes. I think it's the exact same role. Your athletics versus the victim's athletics or acrobatics.
Okay.
Do you have to go down to the ground with them on that?
Yes. You
See,
do.
There's always caveats with it, like, oh, I gotta tackle him, and then all his buddies surround you and just kick the crap out of you.
I mean, I guess I'm not aware of anything that says you have to.
You do. It says it in the rules that you also go prone.
Does it?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the grappler feat? Because we're talking about... This is a different...
This is like tripping. Or, tripping. Okay, yeah, it does say in the grappler feat that you can push them to the ground. That's what I'm thinking about. We'd have to look up the very specific rules on tripping that we have never once used in any campaign.
It's because it's garbage.
Or we're just not creative enough.
I'm going to go with Kevin's. We're not creative enough.
I'm sure there's uses. I made a character that tried to grapple. The wrestler type.
Yep. That was based off of that green text, right? The luchador?
No. Kevin doesn't read about that.
No? Okay.
Don't you dare say I do anything based off of green text.
I thought that's how you've lived your entire life. It's just based on green text.
I have a unnatural hatred towards green text. I don't know why. I've yet to read one where like, oh man, that was a fun read. I'm glad I experienced this in my life. I always just get mad at them. It makes no sense. It's illogical.
The venom in his voice. He hates it.
He does. So, back on topic though.
Boo.
Any reason to go past level 7 on either side?
Yes.
Just yes. Okay.
Well,
rogues, for instance, only scale their sneak attack with rogue level.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That is absolutely critical if you want to be doing damage.
And at level 7, they get 4d6 for their sneak attack. So that makes me think in a min-max setting, you'd want to go higher in rogue than you would in monk. Then you're kind of giving up key points, but that wouldn't really be your entire focus. It would just give you some more utility to, make unarmed attacks and whatnot. But if you're going as a monk and you've made it to level 14 and you're deciding whether you want to take level 8 in monk or level 7 in rogue, would you sacrifice that class feature at level 7 for rogue besides the sneak attack?
I think it's one of the nice situations where it's not critical, where you hop on and hop off. Both of them you can scale to whatever level of monk and rogue you really want.
Right.
And there's not a humongous difference. It's going to be how much do you want, say, the monk's later features. Because some of those get pretty nifty.
Very.
Stuff, yeah. All right. I think we dissected these pretty well. We're 50 minutes in. We should probably do our Monster of the Week segment.
Sounds good to me.
We did promise that.
Do, 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 do. I don't... All right, you want to swap out my chair, bud? This week's Monster of the Week is the horrifying, the terrible, the Grey Render from Mordekainen's Tome of Foes. This hulking monstrosity looks like a creature that crawled out of the bowels of hell with incredible AC, incredible constitution. This tank will rip apart any creature it runs into. But all it wants to be is your friend. That's right, the Grey Render has only one thing on its mind besides eating and destroying its enemies, and that is finding an intelligent creature to bond with. It is essentially a gigantic, chaotic dog. So much so that the quirks table is almost laughably dog-like. 3 likes to snuggle. 7 compulsively digs up the ground. 5 has terrific eye-watering flatulence. This was no mistake. This was, without a doubt, designed to be the world's most annoying dog. Once this guy bonds with you, there is no getting rid of him. And while he will protect you with his life, he might not get along with all of your friends. And depending on your role, he might also hate your horses. So what do you think, guys? What do we have here? It may not be a complex combat monster, but it sure does have some flavor.
No, it's definitely not complex. We've got multi-attack, 3 attacks, 1 bite, 2 claws. Pretty standard there. It's got a cool reaction ability, Bloody Rampage. When the Grey Render takes damage, it makes 1 attack with its claws against a random creature within its reach other than its master. Now, that says random creature, meaning not just an enemy. So I'm thinking this is going to work best as a companion character, but it's a challenge rating 12. And you're right, it hits hard. It's got high AC.
19.
Yeah, 19 AC, plus 8 to hit. That's pretty rough to put alongside another creature. This is a high-level monster if I've ever seen one, especially for a minion of a boss.
Mm-hmm. I would love one of these things hanging out with a lich.
Yeah.
Like we have the big bad evil guy, the evil lich in this Grey Render against his wishes, just kind of bonded to him, and he keeps fucking up all his plans. The flavor in it even talks about how it will do anything the master says. The master has really no choice in that. But that's about where that completely ends. So it's going to growl at and attack anybody that comes by, friends over. Literally not going to have friends over, but
they'll ruin his dreams of owning a horse emporium, that's for sure.
Yeah. The Grey Runner will go out in the night and just kill and eat a horse.
Well, just think about it this way. You're a lich, you've got these awesome skeletons all throughout your wonderfully designed lair. You're sitting on your throne, just I'm so... And then Sparky, the Grey Render, who just won't go away, comes in with a giant skeleton's torso in his mouth, panting. Is like, it's like, Sparky, that took me 7 weeks to create. It took me 7 weeks and almost 6,000 gold to create that giant skeleton, and you bit him in half.
And it totally
Sparky
could.
down. It'd be perfect.
It would be. And then again, just terrifying to fight. I actually have a soft spot for this thing. It reminds me of my dog.
Yeah.
Does your dog also hate horses and tear up trees?
He hates horses. I've taken him for like walks, like in the metro parks around here, and there's a horse trail, and so we've ran into him, and he does not respond well to horses. Luckily, these are hardened city horses who don't mind the barking and the growling. But
And he's also not the size of a horse.
no,
I would also give him a challenge rating 0. No offense.
my dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not 12.
No. But I mean, the attitude. Yeah, I mean, you guys know. So I have a dog. He's a mutt. He's around 50 pounds. He's a very sweet dog. He's to me and my wife. And super protective. And that comes out in ways where if somebody comes to the house, they're getting barked at and growled at, and he barks at people outside, and we're working on it, but
It's a lot like a Grey Render, only
Yeah.
the consequences are he just interrupts our gaming sessions
Yes.
as opposed to tearing us in half.
Right. I do like the idea of this being like the big bad evil guy's companion, because this could also be a mini boss on the ramp up. So, you've got a challenge rating 15, 16, 17, whatever, actual boss, but then he's sending out this Grey Render to do his bidding, whatever that may be. Let's say it's just destruction, because that's what Grey Renders are great at. Causing chaos. Let's do that. So he's sending him around. It's destroying entire villages and, causing problems in cities. And it could just be, again, a boss ramp-up fight, which I always like the idea of mini-bosses before the boss.
To be honest, I struggle to see it being sent out to do its bidding. It has an intelligence of 3.
Well,
it seems like it's more just a reactionary bodyguard. It's glued to the master.
Right, but if he just teleports him in the middle of a city,
Okay.
Yeah,
it's going to be a problem. That's what I'm saying. It's more for just destroying
Okay, yeah,
stuff.
okay.
I'm not saying he should go out unless it's like, oh, I really want to get rid of all of the horses in the world. In which case, he could totally send him to do his bidding. He's also uproots and choose trees. Maybe if he really needs to destroy trees in an area. I don't know.
There are a lot
Weird
easier
game
ways to
play.
do that.
Yeah.
But what I'll counter signal on that is you're losing a lot on putting him as just a mini boss. He's basically a souped up ogre for all intents and purposes. I think the best point to use him would be as not necessarily something you fight, but just something you have to deal with.
Right. Yep, that's fair. It's just something that you're hearing about in other cities. Like, oh yeah, we had something come by and it just absolutely demolished our city. But that doesn't mean there has to be a direct confrontation.
Yeah, and you could even be like, oh,
Until
sell
the
on
end.
a quest. It's like, who owns this thing? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe like
More
a
of a-
hat maker in a town. It's like, I need to get rid of this thing. It's destroying the entire town. No one's buying my hats anymore. But you can't, it's a little bit tough because you can't just kill this thing. It's so friendly. And it really did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It's friendly to one person.
No, it's friendly. There's no reason it'll kill random people. It's just, it doesn't know its own strength.
Ooh, that'd actually be great if it had the likes to snuggle quirk, because of course it's going to try and snuggle in somebody's house and just topple the entire thing over. Just killing so many people. It'll just be covered in dead bodies and it'll finally be happy.
I don't think that's what it's looking for when it says likes to cuddle. I think it's a little simpler. I think he just likes to snuggle people.
I think you're just really harsh in my vibes.
You're not giving him a chance. He's a good boy. He's a good boy, and he did not mean to destroy all the horses.
He didn't know what he was doing.
He didn't.
It's really the master's fault.
I would have an issue giving him just one of these quirks, though.
Yeah.
I like them all so much that I'd have to choose at least 3 or 4 of them. That would be, or just choose them when it's convenient. Obviously, if it's like a one-off fight, none of these are going to come up unless you're fighting in a forest and he spends a turn uprooting trees. But that's not exciting. Just being able to take any of these and use them would be great.
Chases birds, leaping into the air to catch them, heedless of the destruction it causes.
Yeah, that one's great.
Cries piteously in the dark.
See,
This is like people's worst nightmare, and whimpers and cries when it's dark.
Yep.
It's great. Or another way to use this, and not as a companion to the big evil boss, to a friendly NPC who has this thing stuck with them, and the NPC is too much heart to just kill this thing, and they know if they just send it off, it's just going to cause destruction, so they kind of accept they're the caretaker of this Grey Render who just keeps fucking up all their plans.
That would be kind of adorable. Then it gives the PCs like this cute, terrifying monster to love.
Yeah.
Which is always fun.
and just a constant war on the player's reputation.
Right.
It's like, where are we going? Oh, we're going to town. We can't go to that town anymore. We destroyed 3 brew pubs last time we went there. He just kept ripping up those barrels. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to kill it. It's like, no. The NPC says no. You could even have a PC do this. You just have to find the right PC, give them the Grey Render. Suddenly, if they don't know what's going on here, they're like, holy crap, I have a behemoth that loves no one but me. Like, within 3 sessions, they'll be like, how do we get rid of this thing?
Yeah.
It's ending fights instantly, but we have more enemies than we could have ever dreamed of now.
It might kill a friend. If you're a low enough level, that bloody rampage could just knock one of your teammates right out.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a claw attack, which +8 to hit in 2d8 +4 damage, slashing plus another 2d6 bludgeoning. Only if the target's prone.
Yeah, which is specific, but as I was saying, if it happens on every single time it takes damage, So that it just can become a problem very quickly.
Yeah.
Say, even if especially if you're lower levels, I would not want that thing on my team. That's just a liability.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are some good ways to get rid of it? My only thought is specific and hard to find out about Gray Render Farm. A place where people have trained for years in the art of calming these things down and getting them to leave you alone. And it's just this idyllic field, like you were promised in your childhood, where your dog or cat was taken to this beautiful farm where they'd be loved by old women. Only it's real, and you have to track it down, maybe even have to pay them to take away your gray render.
And by real, you mean it's actually just a metaphor? Because we don't want to talk about how terrible it is that we have to kill this gray render. You can't just rehabilitate this thing. That's like totally against its entire nature.
I don't know, maybe if you were like some kind of weird druid, you could like learn some mastery spells and then like make a shitload of money because there was like a gray render plague. Nobody knows what to do with it. Because I mean, as soon as you attack it, you're in for a big fight.
They do just reproduce by budding. So that could be an entire thing. There's just like a gray render in a cave who's just been like there for months, years, whatever. And they just keep on letting these tiny gray renders out to find people. And it's just become an entire plague on the countryside. That's a campaign right there. Really disappointing boss fight at the end. But, you know.
And they come out real tiny and like, oh, this thing's kind of cute, like in a homely way, but
and
it's
then they
little.
just like quickly grow to size. So everybody just thinks, oh, look at this adorable little thing that, you know, barks at my horse. And then just a week later, you just find the horse ripped to shreds.
That's absolutely been a plot of a TV show or a movie.
So many.
I mean, that's also kind of what happened when all those people thought alligators would make good pets. It's still an issue today.
People think that?
Yes. And then they get 50 pounds and you're like, wait a second, this is just a giant angry lizard. So they release it like as just near people. And it's like, well, that's annoying. Snakes too. We have like tropical anacondas in the Everglades of Florida because people are like, you know, it'd be really cool an anaconda. They're only like 4 feet long. And then 3 years later, like, oh no, I forgot they get longer. Quick, put them in the swamp. So yeah, there's a lot of ecological damage that can be caused by these things, especially if they were Oh, how about this? A shifty merchant comes out into town with a bunch of baby gray renders and starts pawning them off on people. He's from a foreign land. No one's ever seen these things. Right. But all of a sudden, the most popular pet in the city is a completely unhinged giant monster.
Yeah, and that would probably take some reworking because fighting more than one of these at a time would take a much higher level than people who just deal with village problems. But I could see like making a young gray render where you just kind of debuff it a little bit. And that'd be really fun just to handle that. Because then you could maybe have somebody just shepherd them out of the village to this farm that you speak
kind of flute.
Yeah, yeah. A Pied Piper type scenario. I mean, there's tons of things you can go through with that. I mean, you said like, oh, I feel like this has been a thing in a movie, a show, or something like that. So many things in D&D have been done before. None of it is about being original in the conflict. It's all about how it's resolved that makes it original.
Right.
From anything I've found, I mean, I steal so much stuff that's just totally unashamed, just whatever. This has been done a million times before. But giving that scenario to 4 sociopaths and seeing how they figure it out is a lot more fun.
With magic abilities.
Yes, with magic abilities.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts on the Great Render?
I want one.
I don't think it's going to fit in your apartment.
Got a 2-bedroom, buddy.
I'd like to know the weight on it.
It's large.
Yeah.
There in the DMG, I think there's something that explains it, but I'm
right.
He looks like a thick horse. I'm going to call him at 2,000 pounds.
I'd say more because he's just muscle, which I know horses are muscle. But
yeah, what the hell do you think a horse is made out of?
Are horses large size category?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Then,
ride them if they weren't.
yeah, but he's
So
got like...
I'm putting him at 500 pounds bigger than the average horse.
Okay, and that's just skin. It's just his thick skin.
He's got those thick legs and arms. And...
throat.
6 eyes for whatever reason. He appears to be kind of a bug.
I was thinking like a mole.
Moles don't have 6 eyes.
Yeah, but like in D&D they probably do.
Well, we'll have to wait for next week to investigate that incredible occurrence.
Yeah, and on that note, I think we're calling it an episode. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye. I'm probably going to cut that.
Yeah, that was terrible, Kevin.
I never know how to end these things.
Next time on Monsters in Multiclass.
We're going to discuss the Ranger Wizard multiclass, as was teased earlier, and also discuss the Star Spawn. Ooh.
No.